Alright, here's the real story, and it's a lot more complicated than the internet made it seem. People have finally started to understand why Stefon Diggs didn't spend Christmas with Cardi B and their 7-week-old baby, and let's just say the truth is messier than the rumors. To really get it, we have to rewind a bit. Back in November, Cardi and Stefon welcomed their baby boy, a tiny newborn they lovingly call Brim. At just 7 weeks old, this was supposed to be a milestone moment, their very first Christmas as a family of 3. Naturally, fans imagined cozy photos, matching pajamas, and proud new parent energy. But that's not what happened. When Christmas arrived, Cardi took to Instagram, and her posts were warm, festive, and full of love. She was at home with all 4 of her children, showing off multiple Christmas trees, each one carefully decorated to match a different child's personality. The house looked joyful, intentional, and very much centered around motherhood. Yet something felt off. Stefon was nowhere in sight. Almost immediately, the internet started buzzing. Where was he? Why wasn't the baby's father there? Did things fall apart already? The side-eye was relentless. And then Stefon posted. On his own Instagram story, he showed himself celebrating Christmas at his place with his other children. One photo featured him holding his son, captioned as that child's first Christmas. Another included his daughter. Later, he reposted Cardi's photo with their newborn and added a simple message, "Miss y'all." But then came the line that really set people off. He joked about Cardi holding the baby too tightly, saying she was making him soft. That single comment lit a match online, and suddenly Cardi was being dragged in every direction. To outsiders, the whole timeline looked awkward, almost embarrassing. People ran with the narrative that Stefon didn't want to be around her, that she'd been left behind during the holidays, that something had already gone wrong. And honestly? From the outside looking in, it didn't look great. A new baby. Christmas. Separate households. It raised eyebrows for a reason. Now, though, the picture is finally clearing up. Cardi's close friend, Kim Barbie, stepped forward to explain what really happened, and according to her, this wasn't about cheating, breakups, or secret drama. It was classic baby parent logistics. Allegedly, Stefon couldn't have all of his children together unless their respective mothers were present. And Cardi, wanting to protect her peace and her kids, chose not to put them in the middle of that kind of situation. So no scandal. No betrayal. Just complicated family dynamics, tough decisions, and the kind of behind-the-scenes realities that don't always translate well on social media. So instead of pushing herself into a situation that already felt tense, Cardi chose calm over chaos. That decision meant Stefon spent Christmas with his other children, while Cardi stayed home celebrating with hers. Kim Barbie explained it plainly, Cardi has her kids, Stefon has his. If the condition is that certain children can't be around unless their mothers are present, then that boundary stands, no drama, no hidden meaning. Kim was clear about one thing, there were no secrets, no betrayal, and no sneaky behavior behind the scenes. She also reminded everyone that Cardi and Stefon are still early in their relationship. Situations like blended families don't magically sort themselves out overnight. They take time, patience, and uncomfortable conversations. And honestly, none of this should have shocked anyone. People have been discussing Stefon's children all year long, so acting surprised that he chose to be with them on Christmas felt performative. As Kim pointed out, it would have been strange, if not wrong, for him not to show up for his kids. On Cardi's side, she's also a mother to multiple children. Throwing everyone together without clear boundaries simply wasn't an option. But this is where the situation starts to feel heavier. The numbers matter. Stefon doesn't have just a couple of kids. Reports say he has at least 6 children with 6 different women, and 4 of those babies were born in the same year. That fact alone adds a whole new layer of complexity. Kim Barbie did her best to defend the reality of it all, but many people are still stuck on one uncomfortable detail. Cardi gave birth just 7 weeks ago. This is a brand new baby. And yes, it feels awkward, maybe even sad, that she couldn't spend her newborn's first Christmas with the baby's father because of all the moving parts involved. Still, credit where it's due. Stefon showed up for his children, and that matters. Being an active father counts. Period. But let's not pretend the situation is easy or comfortable. Leaving a newborn behind to balance multiple households is a lot for anyone to process. So now the conversation shifts. How do people feel about the other baby mothers wanting to be present? And what about Cardi choosing distance and peace instead of forcing herself into that environment with her kids? There's no clean answer. It's complicated. It's messy. And honestly, it's exactly what happens when multiple families are involved. This situation has people talking nonstop because there's a lot going on. Stefon welcomed several newborns in a single year. That alone is enough to make people react emotionally. Some feel upset. Some are confused. Some are judging hard. But here's the part that keeps getting overlooked: no one watching from the outside is in this relationship. Cardi is an adult. She knew exactly what she was stepping into. She was fully aware of how many children Stefon had before having baby Brim with him. This wasn't a surprise dropped on her after the fact. She made a conscious, grown decision, knowing the full picture. That's her life, not the internet's. The only real sticking point for many people is how it looked. For a moment, it seemed like Cardi had given him his first son, only for people to later realize another baby boy had been born not long before. The children are close in age, just a few months apart, which fueled confusion and assumptions. But again, that's not anyone else's situation to manage. We've seen this before, men creating families in different places, back to back. It's not ideal for everyone, but it happens. And if Cardi is content with her choice and Stefon claims he's happy too, then that's their reality. No one else has to live it. A lot of the frustration really comes from people still hung up on the fact that Cardi left a previous situation only to enter another complicated one. Some feel she traded one mess for another. But the truth is, that was her call. No one knows what really goes on behind closed doors. At this point, Stefon can't win. If he doesn't show up for his kids, people complain. If he does show up, people complain louder. He spent Christmas with his children, and somehow that still turned into outrage. When Cardi celebrates with her family, people ask, "Where's Stefon?" When Stefon celebrates with his kids, people ask, "Where's Cardi?" No matter the choice, someone is angry. It's exhausting just to watch. Here's the simplest truth: let Stefon be a father to all his children, not just the one he shares with Cardi. His life didn't begin when their relationship started. He had kids before her, just like she had kids before him. That history doesn't disappear just because two people get together. Families are blended. Baggage exists. That's real life. And Cardi herself is navigating her own complicated reality while raising multiple children. Nobody involved is perfect. Nobody's hands are clean. But one thing is clear: Stefon shows up for his kids. That counts for something. At the very least, Cardi chose someone who is present in his children's lives, and that says more than people want to admit. So maybe it's time to let the noise die down. Let these people live, parent, and figure things out without non-stop judgment. The real question is simple: can Stefon Diggs be allowed to be a father in peace? This whole situation highlights how quickly the internet turns into a jury. Suddenly everyone is a relationship expert, a parenting coach, and a moral referee, without being invited. The truth is obvious. Stefon has a lot of kids. That's not gossip, that's fact. Multiple babies, close in age, different mothers involved. It's understandable that people feel uncomfortable or confused by that. Those reactions are human. But judgment from the sidelines doesn't make the situation any clearer, it just makes it louder. This isn't the kind of family structure most people picture for themselves, and that's fine. Where things go too far is when people forget a basic truth: you don't have to agree with someone's choices to respect that they're not yours to make. Cardi B is the one in a relationship with Stefon, not the internet. She's the one who chose to have a child with him, fully aware of his life and responsibilities. None of this was hidden, sneaky, or revealed after the fact. Yet people keep acting like Cardi was blindsided, as if she didn't understand what she was stepping into. That assumption is more insulting than anything else. She's not naive. She's a grown woman with lived experience, multiple children, and a massive career. She didn't accidentally stumble into this situation. She made a deliberate choice, and whether anyone agrees with it or not is irrelevant. Where things really spiraled was in how it looked. The public narrative briefly framed it as if Cardi had given Stefon his first son, and that idea spread quickly. When it later came out that another baby boy had been born not long before, people felt thrown off and reacted emotionally. But misunderstanding a timeline doesn't equal deception. Just because the public filled in the blanks incorrectly doesn't mean anyone lied or schemed. The children being close in age complicated the story. Yes, but complicated doesn't automatically mean cruel or calculated. What truly intensified everything was Christmas. Holidays amplify emotions, expectations, and judgment. Seeing Cardi at home with her kids while Stefon spent the day with his stirred up instant outrage. People jumped straight to extreme conclusions: he abandoned her, she looks foolish, the relationship is falling apart. All of that noise erupted at once. But when you pause and actually think it through, the situation isn't shocking at all. Stefon had children before this relationship, and those children deserve his presence too. If the reality was that their mothers needed to be present, then that's the framework he had to work within. Cardi choosing not to bring her own children into that environment doesn't make her weak, clueless, or desperate. It makes her protective. Not every space needs to be blended just to satisfy optics. Sometimes safeguarding peace matters more than proving a point. What people don't want to admit is that Stefon was stuck in a no-win scenario. If he stayed with Cardi and the newborn, critics would have accused him of neglecting his other kids. If he went to be with his other kids, the narrative flipped to abandonment. There was no move he could make that wouldn't trigger backlash. And that's the unfair part. Fathers are criticized when they're absent, and somehow criticized again when they show up. Society demands involvement, but only when it fits a neat, comfortable storyline. Real life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't reset when you enter a new relationship. Children don't vanish. Responsibilities don't dissolve. Stefon had kids before Cardi, just as Cardi had kids before him. That's reality, not scandal. A lot of the anger also comes from people still emotionally attached to Cardi's past relationship. Some feel disappointed, like she left one complicated situation only to walk into another. That frustration gets projected onto Stefon. But growth doesn't always look clean from the outside, and life rarely unfolds in straight lines. Another uncomfortable truth: having multiple children does not automatically make someone a bad father. Numbers alone don't define parenting. What matters is effort, presence, and consistency. From what's publicly visible, Stefon is involved with his kids, and that's not meaningless. Is the situation chaotic? Absolutely. Is it ideal? Probably not. But ideal isn't the same as real. Real life is layered, messy, and sometimes awkward. Families don't always come in tidy packages. People also forget that Cardi herself is navigating multiple transitions at once, raising children, managing a demanding career, evolving emotionally, and setting boundaries. Expecting her to prioritize public approval over her children's peace is unrealistic. Blended families take time. Boundaries take trial and error. Dynamics shift. Holidays won't always look perfect. That doesn't mean a relationship is failing, it means it's human. What's exhausting is the constant demand for explanations. Every choice gets dissected. Every absence turns into a conspiracy. Sometimes people are just living their lives without curating every moment for public consumption. The truth is, no one outside that circle knows the full story. We're all reacting to snapshots, not the entire film. Judging a whole relationship based on social media posts guarantees misunderstanding. If there's one takeaway, it's this: let people parent. Let families figure things out in real time. Let grown adults make grown decisions without nonstop commentary. Stefon being present for his children shouldn't be controversial. Cardi protecting her peace shouldn't be either. Both things can be true at once. This situation isn't flawless, but it's real. And real life doesn't owe anyone a polished narrative. Sometimes it's just people doing the best they can with complicated circumstances. At the core of it all, this is about perspective. From the outside, it's easy to judge, choose sides, and turn real lives into entertainment. But when you slow it down, what you're actually witnessing isn't a viral scandal or a click-driven drama. It's two adults navigating a reality that didn't start yesterday and won't end tomorrow. Life doesn't reset on Christmas morning, and responsibility doesn't suddenly appear because the calendar hits a meaningful date. Stefon didn't wake up on Christmas and suddenly remember he had children. They existed long before headlines, long before reaction videos, and long before strangers decided they were entitled to weigh in. And Cardi didn't become a mother when it became visually pleasing or socially acceptable. She's been making hard, quiet decisions for her children long before anyone noticed, and many of those choices were never meant to be seen online in the first place. The internet is obsessed with tidy stories. It wants everything wrapped up with clear villains and obvious heroes, clean timelines, and emotional conclusions that fit neatly into a short clip. People want certainty: who failed, who showed up, who deserves applause, and who deserves criticism. But real life doesn't function like a viral storyline. Real life is complicated, layered, and often inconvenient for the kind of fast, simplified narrative social media depends on. In reality, responsibility isn't always loud or visible. Love doesn't always announce itself. And parenting, especially within blended or non-traditional families, usually happens quietly, away from public view, in ways that don't translate well to a comment section. Some of the most responsible choices don't look impressive online at all. Sometimes they look uneventful. Sometimes they look like distance, when in truth they're about restraint. Sometimes they involve not stepping into situations that would disturb a balance that took years to establish. There are moments when showing up publicly would actually do more harm than good, when the healthiest option is to avoid the spotlight entirely. Social media has trained people to believe that visibility equals care, but that connection is false. Being involved in your child's life doesn't require proof. Good parenting isn't something that needs to be documented in real time for validation. Choosing peace often means declining chaos. It means understanding that meaningful holidays don't always require everyone being in the same physical space. Children can still feel secure, loved, and supported even when parents aren't together in one room. That idea can be uncomfortable for outsiders because it challenges the fairy tale version of family many people were raised to believe in. But blended families don't operate by storybook rules. They operate within real-world limits, emotions, schedules, boundaries, history, and the responsibility of shielding children from tension they didn't create. Sometimes being an involved parent means dividing time in ways others won't understand, and don't need to. It means accepting complexity instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Children can grow up with multiple homes, routines, and sources of love without that being a failure. Yet the internet often treats separation as abandonment, when in many cases it's simply a different structure of care. What gets overlooked is the emotional effort required to maintain these arrangements. Co-parenting without public conflict takes maturity. Keeping disagreements private in a culture that rewards oversharing takes discipline. Making choices you know will be misunderstood, while still believing they're best for your children, takes humility. These qualities don't trend. They don't go viral. But they matter far more than a perfectly staged holiday photo. What's really needed is grace. Grace for blended families doing the best they can with imperfect circumstances. Grace for people navigating ongoing situations without a guidebook, without universal approval, and often without privacy. Grace for realities that are unfinished and unresolved, not packaged neatly for public consumption. Life isn't a movie, and parenting isn't a performance. There's no final scene that explains everything, no credits that roll after a hard year. No one owes the public a flawless holiday image. No one owes strangers a timeline, justification, or behind-the-scenes breakdown of deeply personal decisions that were likely made through difficult conversations and emotional negotiation. Expecting parents to prove love through optics is dangerous because it values appearance over substance. Love isn't measured in posts or captions. It's measured in consistency, safety, and long-term presence, not symbolic moments. If a parent shows up for their children in ways that matter to them, that matters. Stability, support, and reliability count, even when they don't look the way outsiders expect. Parenting is a long-term commitment built in everyday moments, phone calls, routines, reassurance, shared laughter, and quiet dependability. None of that is visible to someone scrolling past a headline, but that doesn't make it less real. The issue isn't that people care about children. Care is important. The problem is when concern turns into entitlement, and entitlement turns into judgment. Strangers begin to believe they have the right to grade someone else's family life based on fragments of information. In doing so, they forget that children aren't symbols or talking points. They're real people who benefit from stability, not from public outrage framed as accountability. There's also a deeper layer beneath the reactions. Many people project their own unresolved experiences onto public figures. They're responding not just to what they see, but to what it reminds them of. A missed holiday echoes personal absence. A complex co-parenting situation reopens old wounds. Emotional reactions get dressed up as moral arguments. But no family exists to heal someone else's pain, and no one's life is obligated to make sense to the public. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is acknowledge that we are only seeing fragments, and that fragments are never the full story.